Listen up, people. That's right. It's time to listen to the sparks of bliss in your life. I'm your host and life coach, Caroline de Posada from Miami, Florida. And this podcast is an invitation to join me in upgrading our mindset, wellness, and relationships so that together we create a life that unlocks our bliss. Join me each week as we explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and the moments of clarity, or as we like to call them, los momenticos, that make the world a little more magical. Consider this your weekly dose of wisdom in your pocket. Are you ready? Let's do this.
Hey, Blistener. Welcome to episode number 58 of Blissin' Up. Okay, so we're going for this again. If you listened to the episode last week, then you may already know that last week, for the very first time, probably the second time, I attempted to record my podcast on video so that it could be available both in video and audio platforms for you. And it was an epic fail, complete epic fail. So I didn't get a chance to post it last week. But you know what? Here I am again in front of the video camera, going for it, evolving, progressing, and sticking with it. So hopefully today will be the first time that I post a video and an audio podcast reel, so you can catch it on YouTube and on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So we're setting the intention that today this is going to work. Wish me luck, and let's begin. All right. So for today, I have a very important topic in mind to share with you. This is one of the most important things I have ever done in my life, and it is the thing that I think shifts my energy the most and has allowed me to design a life that sparks bliss. And that is what we are here for. We are here to design a life that allows bliss to find us. But in order for bliss to find us, we need to know what it looks like, know what it feels like, know how to see it and listen for it and pay attention to the moments of it. And we think that that happens by chance, but I don't believe it happens by chance. I believe it happens by choice. So this is what I want to inspire you to do. And today's topic is like number one on the list. And that is romanticize your life. What does it mean to romanticize your life? Here's the deal. When you remember your life, you remember it in moments, not in full days, not in full pictures. Half of the things that we experience in our life get lost in memory. It's almost like they vanish, they disappear, they evaporate. And the only thing that remains are little core memories throughout our life that stick out and that mark moments and days. And there's a concept, there's this Velcro Teflon concept. My friend Betsy talks about this all the time, where humans tend to mark tragedy and trauma and negative moments. They attach to it like Velcro. They stick in your psyche, in your memory, in your essence. But joyful, happy moments tend to slip away like Teflon. They're not as easy to stick, maybe because they're not as impactful, or maybe it's because we haven't developed the skill set to make those memories sticky. Romanticizing your life is a way of creating stickiness to the magical moments so that the only thing that sticks to like Velcro isn't the traumatic moments. This is not to suggest that you won't experience painful, traumatic events in your life. Of course we do. But we can match those moments with romantic, blissful, joyful moments. And these moments don't have to be these big, extraordinary, milestone, climb the mountain moments, although they could be. They can also be everyday moments. And I want to teach you how to do that. And I think the reason this topic really surfaced for me this month is because last week when I was naming the theme for June, and this is part of my framework, I have a framework called Live with Intention, which is where you notice, you name, and you nurture the life that you are designing, the life you are writing in this book of life of yours. I named a theme for every month, and that becomes my North Star and my focus and my direction. And for June, the theme that I named was energize, because I wanted to feel energized this June. I want to feed my energy in a positive way. We are made of energy, which means we always have energy, and yet we have this unique ability to nourish our energy or to drain it, which psychologically makes us feel like we don't have any. And I want June to be a recharging of your energy. So, as I've been thinking about what is life giving, what is life draining, or what is energy giving, what is energy draining, what I thought about was the concept of romanticizing your life. So let me explain what romanticizing your life means. Life is life, and how we look at it is our choice completely, right? Your perception is your truth. So I always talk about this. The act of changing the way that you look at your life, like literally changing the lens. You are putting on a different pair of glasses so that you can see the world differently. This right here determines your reality. This right here creates your unique experience. Romanticizing your life is about taking off the negative glasses and putting on romantic ones. It's about choosing to create romance in the most ordinary moments in everyday life instead of wishing, waiting, or longing for romance to magically appear in your life. So how do you romanticize your life? And I would say there's a few ways. One way is by naming the moments you're living. Labeling, naming a moment makes it a little more romantic than it was before you named it, right? Just because it creates a mark in your brain. It makes it, naming something makes it stickier. It makes it attach better, right? So when you think about this, like think about somebody who has a name, but then they give them a nickname, and then the nickname becomes like their identity. Their nickname attaches, it sticks. And when it sticks, it's like that's what they're known for. And when you think about this person, something about their nickname makes them more memorable in your mind and your heart. Like it makes them more special because they have this nickname. Well, the same thing happens with naming moments. So you may already be doing things in your life that are great, but just by naming them, you change the dynamic and you change the experience. So when I had my kids were little, I took a parenting course on, I don't remember the name of the parenting course, but it was a great parenting course. And it was on like helping with tantrums, disciplining children, all the things, like raising them right. And I remember that one of the things that this lady, I think her name was Amy, spoke about was that each child deserved some one-on-one quality time with their parent. And she had a name for it. And I think it was called Mind, Body, and Soul Time, if I'm not mistaken. And she would say, every day you should dedicate 10 minutes of your day in the morning and at night just exclusively with one of your children, no matter how many children you have. So even if they have siblings, each child should have one slot of 10 minutes in the day that is your special time so that you can dedicate it fully to them and they could feel seen and connected and all this kind of stuff. I thought it was a great idea. In my case, it was a little hard because I had 3 kids of very similar ages all together. And sometimes carving out 10 minutes per kid every day was a challenge. It really was. But the idea stuck with me and I was like, how can I make this work in my family? And what I did was I had a conversation with each child and I told them about this special time. And I asked them to name the time with me. So to give you an example, my time with Justin was Mustin time. He named it because he was like, Justin and mommy equals Mustin. And our time was Mustin time. And Ryan's time was Mayan time. And Orly's time was mommy time. And I would every day invite them to spend some Mustin time together, some Mayan time together. And they got to choose whatever it is that we were going to do that day. But we weren't able to really make it happen every day. So I started to get really creative and mindful about noticing when we were alone. Rather than trying to force it all the time, like every day I'm forcing this moment. I would some days create it if it wasn't available, but rather than forcing it, sometimes if there was no time or if I caught myself alone with my kid, I would use the opportunity to name it. So an example, we'd be driving in the car and it was just the 2 of us. We're on our way to Target and all of a sudden I would look at him and I'd go, oh, you know what this is? This is Mustin time. I'd be at the dentist office with one of my kids and I would look at them and I'd go, oh, you know what we're doing right now? Mayan time. Now, all of a sudden, being at the dentist was an opportunity to romanticize the moment. It was just making the time a little extra special. So I would say like, let's take a little picture. Let's play a game. The other day my kid was sick. He's 12 years old, right? He's not that little anymore, but he was super sick, feeling terrible. And we were at CVS to go to urgent care, like the urgent clinic thing, minute clinic. And as I'm sitting there with him, I'm alone and I'm in this habit already. And I'm like, oh, Ryan, it's Mayan time. Now, Ryan feels terrible. I think he has strep throat or the flu, COVID, who knows? He just feels so bad. And he is in no mood to enjoy Mayan time. But I drop it in there anyway. And I'm like, it's Mayan time. And I'm like, what do you think would make this time extra special? And he said, well, if we went and looked at the cards, because he loves magic trick cards or playing cards, and he loves doing magic with those playing cards. He's like, I'd love to go look at the cards. I'm like, let's go. So we went and we looked at the cards, and then he looked through the cards, and then he did a couple things at CVS, and we just kind of laughed and we talked and whatever. And then he went in and he got checked, and we left. And then later that day, he came up to me and he said, Mayan time was so fun today. Thanks for that. And it was a visit to CVS. Like there was no magic to it except that we romanticized the moment. That was it. Okay. The second thing that you can do is create expected surprises. This tradition or ritual began with my father. My father was always traveling. He was divorced from my mom. He wasn't around like a normal father on a daily basis is with their children. But he really wanted to create a very meaningful and special relationship with me. So he learned, or he was a master at being there even when he wasn't, right? Like he would call me every single day. He would send me postcards from everywhere in the world. He was just always there. In fact, on the day that I'm recording this episode, it is about 3 days, I believe. 9, 10, 11. Yeah, it's exactly 3 days before the anniversary of his passing. So it's incredible that I'm thinking about him at this very moment, honoring his life, which was so meaningful and so special. I'm thinking about you, Dad. Anyway, so he was a master, a complete master at being there even when he wasn't, at sending postcards, calling, knowing about my life, being interested and curious about my life, and making me feel special. But he also did something else. He loved surprises. And at first, because he was traveling all the time, he was really good at surprising me because I wasn't necessarily sure when he was going to be in town or not. So let's say I was at somebody's house and he knew I was going to be at that person's house because he kind of kept tabs of me at all times, even though there wasn't any Life 360 or phones or Facebook or Snapchat or anything. And somehow this man still knew where I was all the time. I don't know how he pulled it off. But he would know I was at a party at a house or something like that. And then all of a sudden, somebody would go, "Oh, Caro, your dad's here. Your dad arrived." And it would be like this big surprise. And it would make my day. And I loved that he would always do that. He would always surprise me. But as time went on and I grew, I was older, he was spending a lot more time in Miami, things changed, the dynamic changed. And yet he started to surprise me, even though he knew and I knew that he was coming. So it was what I called an expected surprise. It was like an unspoken game that we played. And it would go like this. He's at home. I'm at home. He calls. "Hey, what are you doing today?" I say, "We're going to be home all day." He says, "What are you going to be doing?" I say, "We're going to be in the pool and hanging out. Of course, you're welcome to come over." He'd say, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe we'll see. I have a busy day today." I say, "Okay, awesome." And then we'd hang up and I knew he was coming. And 30 minutes down the line, there'd be a knock on the door and he'd walk in like as a big surprise. And it was not a surprise, but it was a surprise. It was like an expected surprise. And he would do that all the time. If I was delivering a speech somewhere and he was in town, I knew he was never going to miss the speech. Like he was going to show up, but he wouldn't tell me he was coming. And then I would do it to him too. If he was at dinner somewhere and I was nearby, I would pop into the dinner and he knew I was going to pop in because we never really 100% knew, but we knew. And it was a game. It was playful. It was fun. It was expected, and yet it wasn't. And it made it romantic. I'll tell you a quick story. When my father passed away, he passed away to thunder. I was laying next to him on the hospital bed, and I had fallen asleep, and I'd been waiting up as long as I could for him because I wanted him to pass with me. I didn't want him to die alone. I wanted to be with him. But at some point, I texted my friend Bruce and I was like, I'm falling asleep. I don't know what to do. And Bruce said, "Hold your father's hand, say goodbye, and go to sleep because he knows you're there. He knows you're not leaving." So I did that. I held his hand and I laid down and I went to sleep. And I said a little prayer and I said, "Please, God, let me know that he is gone. Just let me know." And the nurse said to me, "I'll be coming in every 10 minutes or so to check on him because we know he's going to pass soon. So don't worry. We'll wake you up if he passes." So I fell asleep. And then all of a sudden, there was like a bolt of lightning. And I guess the light of the lightning went through the window. There was this big window in the hospital where he was at. And it was so bright that I guess it must have woken me up. And there was a huge crash of thunder. It was a roar of thunder. And in that moment, I heard it in my head. And I don't know if this was my voice or what it was, but I heard, "We've taken him. It's time." And I opened my eyes and I looked over at his face, and he had this little artery, this little vein that had been pulsing. And that's how I had been gauging whether he was alive or not. And it wasn't pulsing. And it was like at that moment, it felt like, it must have been a second, but it felt like it was a minute long that the lightning shone light on him long enough for me to see that little vein and to wake up and all this kind of stuff. So that moment was very marked in my brain. And from that point on, I made a decision that whenever it thundered, I knew it was my father. It would be my way of romanticizing our now soul relationship because our physical relationship no longer existed. So we'd be at home after he passed. The kids would be playing and it would rain. He passed during rainy season and it would thunder. And I would say, boys, stop, say hi to Papa. Say hi to Papa. And they would stop and they would look and they would say hi to Papa. And it's not that I believed that every time it thundered, my dad was like literally causing it to thunder. I just decided by choice that I was going to romanticize our soulful relationship. And then the craziest thing happened. I would see it thunder everywhere in moments where it wasn't supposed to thunder. And if you are close to me, you may have been in situations where you have witnessed that thunder pop up in moments where it would have been my dad that popped up. You would know. So the other day, I was hosting an event called Fika. It's a beautiful event that I host with my niece taught me about it, Alexandra. It's a Swedish tradition of connection and tea. And I'm hosting it at my friend's house. And that particular day, it was torrential weather here in Miami, absolute torrential weather. So because I was the host of this event, I kept looking at the door for all the people that were coming in, and I was checking my phone, because some people were like, I might arrive late because of the rain, or maybe I won't make it. There was just a lot of hustle and bustle around the rain. But my friend Daisy, it was at her house. Daisy knows about the thunder. Daisy has experienced that thunder with me in very powerful ways. So all of a sudden, I'm standing with a group of women, and Daisy comes up to me, and I'm distracted and disoriented. So I am not paying attention to thunder right now. I'm paying attention to all the women in the group as the host that I was trying to be. And Daisy runs up to me and she says, Caro, look, your dad came. And in that moment, my friend, for the first time in 10 years, because he passed away 10 years ago, in 3 days, it'll be 10 years. For the first time, I literally forgot that he had died. I got so excited and I looked at the door because I was certain he was there. I was just certain. It was so impactful that Daisy looked at me, and like everybody that was there saw my face shift with this enthusiasm that Daisy had to point out, it's thundering. And then I realized it like in that split second. No, he's not physically here. It's thundering. And it impacted me so deeply that I started to cry. But I wasn't crying of sadness. I wasn't crying because he wasn't there. I was crying in gratitude that he could be there because we had such a romantic relationship, because there was so much bliss in our relationship. And this is what I want for you to create in your life. Not by chance, by choice. I want you to think about how you can create romantic relationships in your life with the people that you love the most. It doesn't have to be a spouse. It could be a friend. It could be a child. It could be a nephew or a niece. It could be your spouse, it could be anybody, but creating romance in the moments just by making things a little extra special. My husband has also helped me with expected surprises. I often talk about how the very first year that we were dating, he stormed into his apartment with a Christmas tree while I was studying for my law school exams. I was in his apartment. We did not live together, but I would come to his apartment on Tuesdays to watch a TV show, and it was like our date night. But I was there before he got out of work. So I was studying for my law school exams, and he storms in with this Christmas tree, which I thought was like the cutest thing ever because we weren't married and we didn't live together. And he was like buying us a Christmas tree. But we knew we were going to get married. Like we knew that this was forever. And it was going to be our first Christmas together. And it was such a surprise that from that moment on, we kind of made it a tradition that every year he would surprise me with a Christmas tree. Now, we've been together for 20 years, and I know he's going to surprise me with a Christmas tree. This is not a surprise, but it's an expected surprise. And every year it's his job to trick me into not knowing when the Christmas tree is coming and then making it appear. And he does creative things to do it. And he's gotten the kids involved over the years. So now it's the four of them with me. Like at first it was like Orly and him, and then it was Orly and Justin, and then Orly and Justin and Ryan. And now it's like a family affair. And everybody's job is to surprise me with a Christmas tree every year. It's an expected surprise, but it creates a romantic life. So these are just little examples of how you can energize your life by creating romance. Now, if you are looking at this and thinking, oh, I wish my husband would do that, but my husband would never do that. Or, oh, I wish my dad were like that, but my dad wasn't like that. We can't control other people. We can't. But you can control you. And you can control the dynamic that you create. So if you want to have that kind of life, and you don't seem to have the environment for it, create it. Vocalize it. Name it. Be a role model of it. And train the people you love to participate by making it fun and contagious. Energy is contagious. There's a difference between approaching something with joy and love and curiosity and activation versus neediness, graspiness, victim-y. I wish you'd do this for me, but you don't. I want you to choose to raise your vibration in order to create that around you. And people will follow because everybody wants romance. Everybody wants a spark of bliss in their life. So the third way that I romanticize my life is by romanticizing my surroundings. You can change the energy of anything by changing the environment, the surrounding, the mood. And it is so easy to do. You can do it by activating your senses, the ones that inspire you the most. This could be smell. This could be taste. This could be sound. This could be touch, right? So how do we do that? Well, candles, lighting candles, putting essential oils if you don't like candles because you think they're bad for the environment, setting up essential oils around your house, lighting, dimming the lights, creating mood lighting wherever you go. Like I have mood lighting now in my life. Music, adding music, just a soundtrack to your day, to your life. Flowers. I'm a huge fan of flowers. Bringing fresh flowers into your environment changes your energy. And there may be others. For you, it may be a bubble bath. For you, it may be a walk outside with nature. For you, it might be watching the sunset or the sunrise. There's so many romantic things that we can find in our life that are inexpensive and that are mood enhancers and change the elements and how everything looks and feels. Do that consciously. Get out of autopilot and create the energy that you want in your life. If you are cooking dinner at home and you've had a very stressful day, some people get home and they're like, I just need a glass of wine. Well, the glass of wine may not necessarily nourish your energy. That's a choice you have to make. But if you find that the wine leads you into a spiral where now you're gaining weight, or you feel like you have a headache in the morning, or you feel groggy and it doesn't help you wake up, or one glass turns into a bottle and it's really hard for you to stop. Like, if you find that that doesn't serve you well, what if you used a different way to unwind by cooking and lighting the house differently, putting some music, inviting your spouse to dance for a second, just a little moment, or inviting your kid to dance for a second, laughing, just being playful, making the moment just a little more romantic than it was before. My invitation to you is to think about your ordinary life, the mundane moments, and think, can I name this moment? Can I change the environment, the mood of this moment? Or can I add an element of surprise to this moment? And can I make it romantic? The last thing I want to tell you about this is I was looking through my camera roll in May when I was noticing the month, journaling, success filing, looking at everything, and deciding how I was going to name June. And as I was going through the camera roll, I noticed all these beautiful moments that I was laughing with my kids, traveling, just beautiful moments. And I thought about social media and about the camera roll and about the whole idea, the concept of a highlight reel. And I was like, in between all these moments, there was chaos. My kids were fighting. I fought with my husband. We were in a bad mood. I was overwhelmed. I experienced anxiety, like all the normal crappy things that happen in regular life. I experienced all of those things in May. I didn't photograph them though. I just experienced them. And as I'm looking through May at the camera roll, I had this thought. In May of 2030, I can look at this camera roll and I will more than likely not remember the chaos, the fight with my husband, the overwhelm, the day that I experienced anxiety. Because we remember moments, not days. What I'm going to remember is these highlights, these magical little highlights and reels. And I thought, this is what romanticizing life is all about. It's about updating our memory with highlights so that our life story in the collective, in hindsight, tells a beautiful romantic picture. It doesn't mean that the bad stuff doesn't matter, doesn't exist, or that you don't experience them. They may form part of the story too. But you can even romanticize that by knowing how to tell the story. Sometimes when you look at social media, you look at people's highlight reels, and a lot of people complain that you can't trust highlight reels or you can't trust social media because it's not real. The reels aren't real. They're fake because people are not actually living this life that they're portraying on in the reel. And then I think about my niece, my niece Alexandra, she's so aesthetic. She's so creative. She lives in Sweden. And she has bad moments just like everybody else. But she has this gift of documenting her life in the most romantic way and sending us videos and making us part of the experience. And one day in conversation, we were talking about it, and she was like, when I look at those videos, I remind myself how beautiful my life is. Even though I have bad days just like everybody else, but it's for me. I'm creating those highlight reels for myself. And then I was like, this is what I want you to think about. I don't want you to fake your life. I don't want you to post a life on social media that doesn't exist. Like, I have a friend of mine who she went on a trip with her family, and she was telling me, Caro, this is the craziest thing, but you're on this trip. These people are on vacation. They don't talk to each other. They're on their phones all the time. They're totally disconnected. They're not engaging. They're not being present. They're not enjoying the moment. And then in 1 minute, they're like, everybody, we're going to take a picture for social. And all of a sudden, they look like they're having the time of their life. They're having the best time. They take all these pictures, and it's super beautiful. And then they post it. And she's like, that's not real life. That's not what I'm inviting you to do. What I'm inviting you to do is to live a romantic life, document it, and then remember it. That is romanticizing your life. So if you have a little moment like Alexandra, where her kid is running up a hill, or he's with nature, he's looking at the butterflies, and she takes video of that moment and she captures that moment, and she adds a background of music to that moment, and she posts it on social media. One day she's going to look back at that moment, and she's going to remember that time. She's not going to remember the tantrum the kid had right after the butterfly picture, because she lived that moment. She captured it. She romanticized it. It doesn't mean that the bad things didn't happen, but that moment became a core memory. The essence of that moment is what you want to remember. It's that it happened, that you lived it, and that you were mindful enough to capture it. So I'm not asking you to take pictures for social media for other people. I'm not asking you to try to fake or force a narrative that doesn't exist. I am inviting you to start choosing to live that narrative for real, with eyes of magic, looking for synchronicity, looking for the specialness, looking for the moments that produce a romantic life. And then go ahead and add a musical background to it. Go ahead and make it a little extra special and update that memory in your mind. Because when you look at it in hindsight and you remember all of those moments, you're going to experience bliss a second time. There's 3 times you experience bliss in your life. When you dream of something that you want to create, you could actually experience that moment in real time. You can experience that romance right then and there, that bliss right then and there. When you experience it, that's the second time, in real present time. That moment when I looked out the window and I saw my dad. And when you remember it in hindsight, you can experience bliss in hindsight, in memory. So romanticizing your life is about having the mindfulness and the awareness of making this moment matter and creating a moment that you can remember forever. That will change your energy for the rest of your life. It will energize you in a completely different way than you ever thought possible. And it's like turning the faucet on. Once you live with big eyes, with magic eyes, that faucet flows freely and the magic appears abundantly. That is That is my truth, and I hope that it becomes your truth. So, on this sacred Sunday, I invite you to name the moments, create expected surprises, and romanticize your surroundings by changing the mood with your senses and with your energy. Have a happy, sacred Sunday, and I will see you next week. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for being here. I am deeply, deeply grateful for this time to connect. If you're loving this podcast, I'd love if you could support me by subscribing, rating, and or leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help us so much. And if you know of someone who could really use a voice like mine in their head, please share this with them and let them know how much you care about their bliss. Now, if you are feeling called to dig deeper and really work on elevating your mindset, wellness, and your relationships to create a healthier, happier, and more meaningful life, then I invite you to schedule a 60-minute complimentary consultation with me. Let's have a meaningful conversation and see if working together is in our future. You can find the link to the calendar of consults right there in my show notes, but you can also connect with me on my website, carolinedeposada.com, or just send me a DM on Instagram at @CarolineDePosada. Like my friend always says, the project is big and you're a part of it. So thanks for being here.